The story unfolding around Shedeur Sanders is not just about football anymore. It is about power, leverage, and a young athlete realizing, earlier than anyone expected, that the system no longer dictates his worth. Long before draft night reshuffled projections and expectations, Sanders had already detached himself from the traditional paths rookies are told to follow. He made it clear that he did not need someone else's platform or account to validate him, because he already had his own deal, his own motion, and his own direction. That mindset became the foundation of everything that followed. When he slid to the 5th round, a moment many tried to frame as a setback, it quietly became the spark for something much bigger. Instead of shrinking his value, the slide exposed a blind spot in how the league and its business partners measure influence in the modern era. What made the situation unprecedented was not just that a 5th-round quarterback had major endorsement deals, but the level of those deals. Partnerships with Nike and Gatorade are typically reserved for athletes already cemented as faces of the sport. These are the kinds of brands attached to generational figures, not players still waiting to take their first professional snap. What many overlooked was that Sanders had already signed these agreements before the draft, at a time when no one seriously believed he would fall that far. The expectation was 2nd round at worst. What happened instead was an aggressive slide that felt less like evaluation and more like resistance. Yet while teams hesitated, the market did not. The business side moved faster than the league itself, and that gap would soon be exposed in dramatic fashion. When Shedeur Sanders' first official Nike merchandise went live, analysts anticipated a strong debut, something in line with other hyped rookies. No one expected what actually happened. Within minutes, systems began to fail. Servers crashed. Warehouses emptied. Distribution pipelines strained under demand that arrived all at once instead of spreading across days or weeks. Before West Coast stores had even opened their doors, internal reports were already flagging sellouts. This was not a normal release cycle. It was a disruption. Within 72 hours, Sanders shattered rookie sales benchmarks that typically take established stars an entire season to reach. Inside Nike, the realization hit fast that this was not simply about jerseys or shoes. This was a cultural surge moving at a speed the infrastructure was not built to handle. As demand spiraled, the reaction inside Nike escalated to the highest levels. Shortages rippled nationwide, and when the founder of the company is reportedly calling and asking how this could happen, it signals more than a logistics issue. It signals a miscalculation of cultural gravity. Executives were forced to confront the fact that Sanders had tapped into something deeper than fandom. Generation Z consumers, a demographic that often ignores traditional NFL merchandise, showed up in waves. Customer data shifted overnight. Buyers who had never interacted with football apparel were suddenly purchasing full collections. Sanders was not just selling products. He was pulling an entirely new audience into the ecosystem. The momentum did not stop there. Sanders moved with intention, gifting gear to teammates, reinforcing loyalty and visibility in organic ways that felt authentic rather than staged. Every move reinforced the idea that this was not a manufactured moment. It was an extension of who he already was. The SS Crown logo going live marked the true ignition point. Internal projections had been ambitious but realistic. A strong first week was expected. Instead, the first hour alone obliterated daily targets. Repeated server crashes forced customers into endless refresh cycles, and distribution centers scrambled to reroute inventory as fast as possible. What should have been controlled demand turned into a frenzy that felt closer to a once-in-a-generation streetwear drop than a rookie football launch. Inside Nike headquarters, emergency meetings became unavoidable. Live sales data climbed so fast it stunned executives watching it unfold. Within days, Sanders' merchandise was not just outperforming other rookies, it was eclipsing numbers typically anchored by long-established stars. Priorities shifted overnight. What began as a promising endorsement suddenly revealed itself as a market-moving force. The numbers told one story, but the buyer profiles told an even more important one. The surge came from demographics brands have struggled to capture for years. Younger consumers, international buyers, and a significant percentage of women all leaned in at once. Nearly 40% of early buyers were female, a figure that shattered long-standing assumptions about football merchandise audiences. This moment did not materialize by accident. It was built deliberately, long before Sanders entered the NFL. While many athletes rely almost entirely on highlights and polished endorsements, Sanders built a digital ecosystem around himself. Behind-the-scenes access, consistent storytelling, and a clear brand identity turned his journey into a narrative people felt invested in. By the time the merchandise dropped, the audience was already primed. Fans did not see a quarterback asking for support. They saw a lifestyle they wanted to align with. That distinction is everything. It is why international markets exploded with demand and why cultural adoption followed so quickly. Authenticity, not polish, opened those doors. As Nike rode the wave, competitors felt the shock immediately. Once Sanders' sales figures leaked beyond internal walls, panic spread. Adidas reportedly convened emergency strategy sessions, confronting the uncomfortable reality that they had missed the moment. Under Armour accelerated scouting timelines, scrambling to identify the next potential breakout before Nike could lock them down. Quiet conversations began across the NCAA pipeline, signaling just how fast the industry shifted into survival mode. Sanders did not just succeed within the system. He forced the system to react. That reaction created complications. Sanders' original Nike deal was never designed for an explosion of this magnitude. Renegotiations reportedly began almost immediately, with bonus triggers and incentive thresholds blown past faster than anyone anticipated. What was once considered an aggressive rookie contract suddenly felt outdated. Yet Nike did not resist. Executives understood that Sanders' value was no longer theoretical. It was measurable, visible, and accelerating. They were not paying for potential touchdowns. They were paying for cultural leverage. What truly separates Sanders from past hype cycles is that the influence is backed by performance. Branding alone cannot survive in football without results on the field, and Sanders continues to reinforce that his rise is not built on image alone. The SS crown has already transformed from a design concept into a recognizable cultural stamp, appearing across streets, social feeds, and secondary markets. Flagship Nike stores reported record-breaking revenue days as customers bought entire collections instead of single items. On resale platforms, premiums surged into triple digits, turning merchandise into assets. The question now is not whether Shedeur Sanders has changed the game, but how far those changes will reach. Is he rewriting the rules of athlete branding for good, or testing how quickly hype can turn into pressure? Either way, the shockwave has already landed. This was not just a successful launch. It was a warning shot to an industry that underestimated the power of authenticity, confidence, and direct connection in a new era. If you want to stay ahead of stories like this and understand how money, culture, and sports collide behind the scenes, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. Drop your thoughts in the comments and tell us where you stand. Is Shedeur Sanders the future face of Nike, or just the beginning of something even bigger? We will be tracking every move, so stay locked in, and we will see you in the next one.